So,
I do anyway, I'm on bar.
General Manager Malik
Malik
Zadeh, yeah. Where would we move?
I don't know. You know, everything's remote these days.
Yeah, we should have a remote meeting now.
Really?
All right, everybody, don't touch hands.
Where have you been, Harry?
Yeah. Don't touch hands. I've been holed up in my house. Where do you think I've been?
Okay, we're up.
All right. Okay, so we are calling the meeting to order again so the public can see that we've called the meeting together at 10:20. We are introducing our new temporary clerk. Can you please say your name?
My name is Gina Musil.
Thank you, Gina, for helping us out.
You bet.
All right, and if you wouldn't mind, read the next order of business.
The Pledge of Allegiance or observance of a moment of silence.
Oh, missed the roll call.
Oh, roll call. Sorry. We could just start with Director Weiner. Okay. Or, sorry, Director Stanley. Sorry about that. Director Stanley?
Yes?
Director Weiner?
Here.
Well, Harry's the chair, right?
Yeah, I could be called director or chair, but I don't mind director.
So this one is noticed as a special board meeting, so that's why otherwise if it wasn't, then different.
All right, well, special meeting.
Okay. The Pledge of Allegiance now, or in observance of a moment of silence, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all, as soon as possible. Okay.
All right. Next is the approval of agenda order. Any member of the board committee may request an agenda item be postponed, removed, or heard out of order. An item may not be added to the agenda unless it meets the requirements of an emergency situation as designed in Government Code, Section 54956.5.
Director Stanley, any?
I so move.
All right, the agenda's been moved and I seconded, and all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
It's been approved. The order has been approved. Public comment.
Comments? Members of the public may speak to an item on the agenda at the time the matter is being discussed by the board/committee. Under this section, members of the public may address the board committee on any item of interest that is within the district's jurisdiction and not listed on the agenda. The board/committee may briefly respond to statements made or questions posed. Request clarification, refer the matter to staff, or place the matter on a future agenda. The board committee cannot act on items not listed on this agenda.
Seeing none and hearing none, the public portion is not necessary.
Consent of calendar. Matters on the consent calendar are considered routine and will be approved without discussion. Prior to approval of the consent calendar, a member of the board may request that an item be removed for discussion. If a member of the public would like to speak to an item on the consent calendar, the member should complete a speaker card and submit it to the board clerk prior to the board taking action. If the meeting is a study session, the Global Warming Committee will recommend the consent items for approval at the next regular board meeting. I have been given no cards.
All right. Can I hear a proposal to accept the minutes?
I move to accept the minutes.
Second, I'm assuming that we both agree to what we just moved and seconded, so the minutes have been approved.
Excuse me. So now we go down to discussion, or do I read the minutes thing again?
No, you don't need to read the minutes. They're part of the packet, and the public can review them at will.
Thank you. Number 5 is discussion, review, and discuss the report of recommended actions and/or policies the board could adopt towards greater sustainability and reduction of the district environmental footprint that was presented at the board meeting of the March 4th, 2020.
Is there a presentation at all?
No presentation. We have attachment, which is a report, as Jeannie just mentioned, that was provided on March 4th. John Haig is here, and he can answer any of the questions related to the recommendations. He worked closely with the consultant who assisted in putting those recommendations together, and he's very familiar with all of the. John Haig. Remember John Haig?
Well, you said and he. I thought that was an Annie, like another person. I'm like, who?
And John is very familiar and is working with many of the other energy and environmental projects that we have going on.
Can we go by this one by one, maybe?
As you wish, you may begin the discussion.
Well, let's just go through these one by one if we can.
All right. So,
Don't we already have motion detection in this boardroom somehow? Because the lights tend to dim on occasion.
do you mind if I read, if we're going through one by one, I'll read the suggestions.
Okay.
I'll set it up. So, first of all, I'd like to thank John for the list, and Director Zepeda for recognizing that the board should take the lead in reducing our footprint if it's going to set high standards to the district. And so I really appreciate the idea, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk about some ideas to do so. The first idea is as follows: direct that motion detection lighting be incorporated into the boardroom that will reduce the amount of common area illumination and increase task lighting at the dais. Director Stanley, do you have some comments on that?
Well, I just was asking, I thought we did have some sort of lighting something because it dims
Yeah, it's probably a little just the light bulbs.
just willy-nilly. Okay.
I don't believe there's much detection. Certainly, if there is, there could certainly be more. I've never seen people. Although last night, I believe that light kind of went down and came back up.
Yeah, sometimes something in here.
Well, there's different switching too, depending on how you activate the wall switching. The zones are set up so that you can turn them on or off. And I don't think that there are any that are responsive just to motion, that, nobody has moved in the area that automatically shut itself down even if the switch is on. I don't think we have that feature in the common space.
Anything else?
Well, I don't think that we should limit this just to this boardroom. I think the whole district should have that kind of lighting. So if somebody leaves a classroom or a boardroom or a conference room, that it shuts down, but not so that it's annoying to where somebody's doing work and they're sitting at their desk and they have to do this number to get the light back. So wherever it's appropriate, maybe.
So we are looking at those things separately for the building. I think the idea of this particular item, though, was to adopt or recommend things that the board specifically in the boardroom could do. We are definitely looking at those things across the entire district, and that's part of our audit. Greenhouse.
Greenhouse gas baseline.
Thank you.
Yes.
So we are looking at those things, most definitely.
So I'm sorry.
I'm done.
Okay. So my thoughts on this were, I like this idea, and having just gone to the hardware store and replaced all my neon lights with LEDs, there's a certain cost involved. And so as to this item, I think we should have a cost analysis to do it, so we can see if put it on a priority list or make some decision in terms of cost benefit. I know that the lighting that I got from my LEDs reduced energy consumption by quite a bit, and the actual light itself was quite enlightening. So money can be saved in the long run paying for more expensive items, but it would be good to have a little analysis showing that, we'll recover our costs for spending more for different lighting and moving this stuff around. It just take X amount of months or years. So the next suggestion was minimize or eliminate the printing of paper copies for board business, including meetings, and set computers to default to double-sided printing. The board can also request paper have the maximum amount of recycled content for any board use, mandate that all computers be Energy Star certified, and be set automatically to sleep mode. Director Stanley, your thoughts on that particular item?
Does the paper, I used to have a copy machine that didn't like the cheap paper. So does the more recycled content jam up the printers in any way?
I think it can, the greater the recycled content, more problematic it can be on older machines, but I think they've dealt with that pretty successfully from a technology perspective. With more modern equipment, I think the district has good quality copiers and printers. Are we in a lease with the copiers and printers? So I think for the patient, right? I think probably it's a question that Justin and for me about what the lease would require or allow. I'm just suggesting that you can mandate the maximum amount feasible. I think there probably is a procurement policy already in place in the district concerning recycled paper. It's a question of how far you push the envelope. I've always recommended you go as far as you can take.
So when you were working on this, do we, some businesses have bins where you put your white paper in to be recycled. Do we have that kind of service available to us?
Like paper solely, the paper recycling
Well,
here.
well, yeah, usually it's colored paper, it's white paper.
Not here, and I'm not aware of the local trash hauling recycling efforts being separated by paper color. I know in Sonoma County they've gone away from that as well, that it's not separated by color or white. But you certainly could. I don't know if there's any advantage from a recycling perspective through the outlets.
Well, I was just wondering, because depending on where you've lived, sometimes they separate it out. So we do have a place to where we can recycle paper, or, okay. And would it be a bother in some way with the use of the printers to double-side print?
No, I think we do that already. So I think probably, again, some of this is things that we're actually doing as a district, and maybe we need to look at being consistent with it. But for example, one of the things that, if this is really focused on the board, one of the things the board could do is not have printed copies of agendas, and that's why we kind of moved away from having printed agendas now. track for the board side. But that's, again, a level of comfort that we would, so we'd like to minimize if possible.
And typically, your copiers and printers and your computers all have the option to be set for single-sided or duplex. And most of the programming suggests duplex. You can print both sides. And sometimes it isn't appropriate because you've got pictures or whatever that bleed through, or so you have to make a change. It's really a suggestion from a policy perspective. What does the board, want to do? You want to deal with the inconvenience of having a double-sided and safe paper, or you want to have a place to write your notes? I mean, again, a suggestion for the board's consideration and nothing more than that. Never anticipated you would take all of these, but
Yeah, I think what would be good, because I'm learning that there's a process where it goes to a committee, then it goes back to staff. And so it would be my desire that the questions that we have here be incorporated into a final staff report regarding all these items, and our suggestions and objections be included with staff support or rejection of any of the items, staff's opinion on is this effective or not. That would be really good if we could get that as part of this process. And present that to the board someday in the not too distant future. All right, so
Are we still on this one?
we can still be on this one.
Okay. So I don't want to eliminate the printing of copies because for me, it's easier if I can have a printed copy. However, if we do roll out a program that we can make notes on our computers and we want to bring them in addition to this computer we have here, and make notes and get training, okay, I will give it a shot, but that seems like a lot of hassle to me, but perhaps not to others. So I don't want to mandate that. I just want to encourage.
So one of the things you might bring forth on this one is the convenience to take notes would make this more palatable to possibly make more palatable to the board to go all paperless. I do know that there's the possibility we have this software that allows us to modify, take notes on these documents. We would just need training on that. And I do it all the time with PDFs files, so it would require training on how to use dropping notes on the PDFs to make, and I've never seen it printed out in a reasonable way, so I would need training on how to do that as well. I mean, not printed out, but displayed in a reasonable way that you see your notes as you go through the document. Let's see. So my thinking on this particular item, I'm sorry.
I'm done.
Okay. My thinking on this particular item would be that, is that the mandate that all computers be Energy Star certified and set automatically to sleep mode. I think we need a little bit more information there, like what percentage of the board members have Energy Star computers, and if none of them have Energy Star. I looked for a tag on my computer and I didn't see any Energy Star, but it may be Energy Star because I'm a good looker but not a good finder, so it might be on there. So yeah, we'd need that, and because cost of computers is a big issue. And that would be my thought on this. Again, I like the idea of minimizing and eliminating paper. I think that our office software has come a huge amount of ways to make that practical, and it's a question of training and getting your preference, getting a new preference, which is always difficult. So it might not be something we can do fast. All right, that's all I have to say on that item. Set standards for room heating and cooling that comply with best practices for offices, including lower heating and higher cooling set points, and a dead band where no conditioning takes place.
I will jump on this one and be the female who speaks up. Being the eldest female on the board and then it's dais, I'm all for setting automatic heating and air conditioning, but we're going to need another fan back here because the women that sit at this dais, including staff, get a little warm from time to time. So we're going to need another fan up here.
That would be called a personal summer moment.
Whatever. Just saying.
I had a boss that called it that. She had to stop talking and said, I'm having a personal summer moment. I have to take a pause.
So, everybody else out here can be hot, but not us.
All right. So that is a very good point. I did not have any objection to this. I think this is a cost-free, in fact, cost savings and easy to implement. But I would like to see that that's true. I don't know if we have to even buy a new, that's probably pretty high-tech sensor over there. So
John, does the fan, having fans mitigate the benefit of?
Yes, of course it does, but the theory is that if the entire room takes a certain amount of cooling, the amount of BTUs necessary to do that is greater than the individual use of fans. But if everybody's going to have their own individual appliance, then the total of those is less efficient than the using the bigger system. So if for example, we had fans out around the room, it would make no sense to do that, right? But for an individual or two, especially if they're smaller, and again, energy efficient fans, it's an energy savings to do it that way. Of course, there's a cost to the fans. So some of these won't be necessarily cost effective when they're environmentally, from a specific dollar and cents perspective. However, Chair Wiener, if you put a value to the externalities caused by some of the activities that we're doing, which is currently done in the economics of the purchase versus the outlay for energy savings, the whole carbon trade, the exchange that the state has put on there, tries to put a value to the pollution that we cause by utilizing the systems, right? We ignore that when we say, how much does it cost for that thermostat, how much does it cost for the fan?
very good point, and it would be good for that to become common, because in order to get to carbon net negative, that would have to be analysis done for every, just to change the thinking. And if we could start with that, in terms of energy usage and energy savings, and then add in the carbon costs of usage of energy and the reduction of carbon by doing that. I know it's a more complicated thing, but I'm glad you brought it up. And I think the more we have these discussions and the more often that's brought up, as if we're going to really do something, we have to think that way. I think that's a wonderful thing to talk about, and any way you can slip that into a staff report and get the board thinking in that terms, and then kind of having everybody kind of go, well, I wonder what the carbon cost of doing X and Y is, then that would be good. So I think it's a complicated thing, though, which we need some training on, everybody, because, for example, we're buying our electricity through the Marin Consortium, and they guarantee X amount of solar, alternative power is generated, I mean, the electricity is generated with non-carbon, from non-carbon sources. And so the use of electricity may or may not add to the our carbon footprint. Depends on the sourcing of our energy. So that's another issue that complicates this whole thing. I know that at CASA, they were behind the power curve on this because they were just getting to the point of what is it, if we're going against traditional electricity, what is the carbon footprint of doing that? They're just getting there. And they're not talking about what's the carbon footprint from non-traditional energy sources. So if we switch to solar from natural gas, and I've just heard some really interesting things regarding that, and I don't know if this is necessarily the place, but I'd be glad to talk offline. That there's ways to store energy that is in fuel, not in batteries. So you can produce I don't know how much we have of ammonia or hydrogen, but I know that you can produce hydrogen from electricity during the day and store it until you need it at night. So I don't know what the energy budget is of that. I don't have any idea what the chemical reactions are of that, but I'm just throwing it out there. I learned that that's a possibility. Instead of having battery storage, you have little fuel generators. And I don't know anything about it.
I don't either, but all I do know is the Marathon goes ammonia.
Yeah, I know we have.
Got a lot of ammonia.
Yeah. But I don't know what the chemical processes that we do generate it, how much we generate it, is it capturable?
We don't generate it, we treat it, generate it in the surface area by way of basically it's, and that is the ammonia source, the primary ammonia source. It's coming to the plant that we need by the biological process.
Right, so would there be like a biochemical process that would concentrate it? And we could, I don't know. I have no idea. I know kind of the chemistry involved in what are the elements that go into ammonia and how that could be used as a fuel. So anyway, I think we should talk about that when we're pie in the skying it rather than at this meeting, but.
Yeah, and if I could respond to that, I think that some of the work that's being done by Engie in terms of the project and the suggestions that are made, probably not as bleeding edge as where you're discussing now, but the reality check on it is, what's it going to cost, how proven is the technology, what's the ROI, right? If it's going to be a 150-year ROI, you probably don't invest in something like that. I don't know what the infrastructure requirements are and how you contain it, how it's done safely and the rest of that, but some of the more aggressive environmental programs that could be in place at the plant won't prove cost effective. It would be a question for the board. If you really want to do this, you can do this and you can save a lot of carbon, but it's not going to pay for itself. Just not going to pay. You're going to end up paying extra every month forever. And it's a question for the board about how it wants to spend its resources. So, the easy ones are the low-hanging fruit where you can say, well, clearly we'll do this because we're going to save 10 cents on the dollar every month. Everybody signs up for that. Then the cost neutral ones are also easy to say because, if it's not going to cost us anything, why wouldn't we do the good thing environmentally? Then the tougher ones, when you reduce as much as you can bring from a cost-free or a cost-plus basis, you have to ask yourself, how much money am I willing to invest in doing the right thing when it costs me out of my pocket? That's the question on the green energy choice before clean energy. Right now, we're on the lower, it's not lower, maybe it's the pale green. It's not the deep green.
No, we're not deep greening.
The deep green is 100% renewable.
Right.
So you have no carbon associated with that work. You have to check your sources because sometimes people say nuclear power is carbon free. I don't really believe that.
Yeah.
Long story short is,
You know, I understand that, and there's just a caveat to that. So if everybody did something, the costs then are not so great, because the technology will become cheaper and cheaper and cheaper to implement. So there's that. So another approach that I would consider is volunteering to be a test case and have someone else pay for the, So there's ways to accomplish this that don't cost our ratepayers money, but we have to get training, we have to be familiar, we have to, there are costs associated with it, and I'm not saying that, but my idea would be to have to be ready on the spot and willing to be a test case for some things. And I would prefer that we do things that are less expensive, which is why my preference would be nature-based, biology-based, where we already have experience with this, and we just need to find the right bugs, or use bugs in a different way than we have, or things like that. So I'm not looking to, to me, I agree with you. The highest technology is not, or the newest technology is not what I'm thinking of. I'm thinking of taking things we know a lot about and using them in a different way, and I think that's the way to give our ratepayers the best bang for their buck. Still, this whole discussion is going in the right direction, and that is that the board is thinking about things in this way, and that the board can do some very small practical things to set the tone. And so I like your list in that regard.
I have more.
You have more about
Yeah,
which
what we're talking about.
which one are we on?
Well, I was trying to figure that out myself, but I think we're still at the cooling of this.
Oh yeah, heating and cooling, because the energy is involved in that.
Yes. So throwing out for staff to ponder is, I know that our two thermostats in here, when we've been too hot or too cold, has always been a mystery to people who fiddle with them. And I'm never really sure if they turn off automatically or they just have a timer, or what's the deal. So that might be good to know. As we're discussing this building specifically, I know we're going to have a maintenance review of this inspection of this building, and possibly discuss what we're going to do in the future about creating more room. My question is part of that discussion, and is solar practical? And when is it practical? For example, if we tore down this building and built a new building, well, then it would be later. If we added another story onto this building, if it's possible, then it's later. If we're going to keep this building exactly the way it is, can we add solar now, or some other kind of alternative energy? And along those lines, I've keep bringing up these turbines I've seen in pipes that I just think is fantastic. And we could talk to East Bay Mud. It has to be clean water, so it could be water that we're drinking that's coming into this building, or it could be water that we're sending over to the RARE facility. And it's just turbines in the pipe, and they're turning because we're pumping so much water, and it's creating energy. So, offset some of our energy use, and is it practical, and how much does it cost? And that's my thing, so I'm done with that one.
Staff has done some investigation into the health
Yeah,
freshwater system.
yeah, Portland's
in
doing it.
gravity-fed areas.
Yeah.
East Bay Mud, I think, could probably do it more effectively than us. And for us, we have a force main on our own in clean water production going all the way to Richmond. So unless we were to add it to the gravity feed leading to Confluence and heading out towards the outfall, I don't think we have enough to
Oh,
internally.
okay.
Yeah, and just to close the loop on that, I think as we are looking at this facility, as we're looking at, even with the plans, those are the things that we will be keeping in mind as we evaluate the building going forward. And I think right now, what we're just trying to do is set, or come up with a set of recommendations, sort of smaller scale that you could adopt now. I mean, we've got a lot of investigations to do with this building that we do. We have a lot of deferred maintenance and things we need to address, but we understand where the board is going, and the board is interested in making sure that we're creating a facility that is in line with your environmental goals. So that'll always be at the forefront of what we're doing.
We're also evaluating solar rooftop as part of the engineering study of the building, aligning an energy use perspective. The district doesn't have the ability to install solar here to offset meters in other locations, basically for a year. If it's cost effective, they will propose it as part of the renewable.
So when we get the NG information, that's going to provide a lot of information for us and tools that we can use to make decisions about going forward. Yeah. So there's a lot more to come on that once we have that information.
Okay, next item, oversee and enforce recycling practices in boardroom, including proper use of recycling and trash containers. I like that one. I don't have a comment about it. I think we should be doing that.
I have a
And
comment.
I think it's more the cost of changing your behavior than anything. Director Stanley?
Well, as I've mentioned before, I worked my way through law school cleaning offices. So if you're an independent contractor, you bid something and it's however long or short it takes you, you're still getting paid the same amount. A lot of the people that we see working in offices are actually employed by the person who has that contract, and then they're getting paid minimum wage. They are probably only getting paid for X amount of time. So time is an issue. And where they put the garbage is an issue. So when a janitor goes around, they usually have a trash can on wheels, and it's got one bag. And I've noticed that we have the recycle bins and the non-recyclable bins, and everything goes into everything, so nobody seems to be making a distinction, so it might be good to put a little signage, this only. But for a janitor, it takes extra effort, extra time to collect the recycled stuff. Now, it can be done because you can put another sack, and it's kind of a hassle, but you can do it and not have to make 2 rounds. But then what? Do we have a bin out behind this building and that says recycle? We do. Okay, well, that's good, because if we didn't, then it would just go in the all-purpose one, and what's the point at that point? So that's good. And
It's actually closer than the garbage.
oh, well, then that's nice. So I think it's and what are we going to recycle is the question. Cans seem to be the thing that actually gets recycled, and possibly plastic water bottles, but not a whole lot more unless it's paper. So, but do we want to put paper in with the cans and the bottles? So, I think it's important to label things so it goes in the proper places. so we don't destroy the paper by getting it all wet. It's just complicated, and then it's a matter of finding out, do we need to pay the janitorial staff a couple dollars more to make the extra effort? Or do we want to say you only have to do the recycling once a week, or?
So we do it in our office and in the back, and we have been working on, we do have labeling and things like that. So we're kind of, it's waste management.
Republic.
I mean, they have a program, so it's kind of what they accept and what they take. What we don't have here, we are looking into is green waste. They do offer it for residential in this area. I don't know if they offer it from a commercial. We have been working with Joe N at the plant, and he has been, and actually I need to check in with him about that, where we are kind of doing, this is a very normal thing to have. It's not anything, we're very, many years into doing these things, so it's not unusual. We just have to commit to it. And for example, plastic water bottles, we'd love to see that people aren't using plastic water bottles, right? You can see one, you now have, container
Things.
over there where your hose use the pitcher of the water, so we'd love for people to bring in refillable and not using plastic water bottles. So
Yep.
we just need to, as you said, commit to the behavior change.
Yeah,
So, Director Stanley, is it?
I'm done. But if we could get some more information when this is presented to the board as to, do we need to separate things out?
Well, we just need to follow the protocol that waste management. Is that what you said?
Republic.
Oh, I don't know.
They actually sort.
Yeah.
They sort there, but their pickup is mixed recycling. It's all in one.
Okay, but if we could just put a little signage, this is what is actually recycled, because,
We don't have it in here, we have it in the kitchen, but yes. We just need to implement here.
Right. So I just wanted to bring it back to who is our target audience with this discussion? And this would be, can we as a board learn how to recycle? And I think it's a low bar. I think we're very capable of identifying a green, blue, and other. And all we need to do is have a brief training on what's which. And I think we are all capable of that. So to bring it back, I think this idea for the board, in the boardroom, is excellent. And when the public comes in and they see we're recycling, kudos to us. All right. Adopt a vegetarian menu for all board district luncheons involving food, functions involving food to eliminate the environmental impacts of livestock used for food. Director Stanley?
well, this is, to me, a very big discussion about this particular topic and how you feel about things and how you raise animals and whether or not they have an impact on this, that, or the other thing. But again, if our target is just this board, I don't care if we go all vegetarian. But I'm not aware of any other person's dietary requirements, so.
It'll come to a vote. I love meat, but I'm willing to be vegetarian for every meal. I would have done it years ago, but my daughter broke out in tears when the suggestion was brought up. I don't want to be a vegetarian. So my wife and I have carried on without being vegetarian, but I'm more than happy to become a vegetarian at any given party. So that is my comment.
Well, the question also becomes, it says all board and district functions. I'm not so in favor of limiting.
I think, yeah, I agree, and I think we can bring this to the board. I'm for it 100%, and I I think that a lot of dietary preferences are based on lack of experience rather than bad experience. So we,
I think we wouldn't be able to mandate what our staff does, however, we can mandate what we provide if the district is
Exactly.
providing the food.
Exactly.
So, that's something that we can consider. I think probably the best is for the board to decide, the board and the staff will have to decide.
and I agree with that, but I think the great thing about food is you can make it taste good, and vegetables taste good, and so people will at least learn something if not like it. I mean, if they don't like it, they won't eat it, and if they learn to like it, I just don't even want to get involved in that, but I like the idea of having the process extend beyond our daily little habits to think globally and act personally. So I like the idea of suggesting it. I don't know if the board's going to go for it, but I mean, there might be some very strong feelings about food. And I think the might part is kind of underestimating the potential. Okay, adopt a practice of composting all food scraps from board functions. I think this is a great idea, but I don't have any idea what it would take in terms of staff time and changes to the district. So I think that would be part of the report, would be to investigate a little bit. That, Director Stanley, you have a comment?
Well, I'm echoing you, and then there's been a couple times where I've investigated just for my own personal use at home, and then it's like, then the question is, how much is it going to cost me? Oh, hell no. I'll just put it in my pile that I got in my backyard and be done with it. So,
The pile in the backyard. That's called composting.
yeah, but they have these nice ones that you
Oh,
for the ooby wooies, so that you could just crank it in your kitchen or something.
Personal story, in Berkeley, I had a compost bin that I made out of wood, and I would throw my compost in there, and then I got these giant vermin that came in and made dinner of it. And it turned out that they turned it more often than I would. So there was an upside and a downside. The composting went much faster, but I had rats. So,
So more information perhaps as to what that entails. I don't see us making a pile, and if we were going to buy a machine, how much is the machine going to cost?
Yeah, I think,
Can I make a suggestion?
yes.
If we're just talking about food scraps, we just take it out of the plant and then dump it into the landfills.
That would be great.
Because the materials you buy are biology, food source.
Well, there we go.
You don't have, big.
Is that not?
Something that would come up in the equipment. It's just scraps, vegetables, and just dump it down.
Awesome.
Well, there we go.
Because we can do it.
So we can have like 5-gallon buckets or something that we scrape the dishes in.
Yeah, awesome.
My past experience, transfer, which was sealed at the top to prevent the burning from coming. Waste in there, and then the worms created topsoil, and people arguing like took the soil, and there weren't any worms, and off it went. Off I went to my garden.
Yeah, I have a friend that created a wood worm box, and he would just throw his vegetable scraps in there, and newspapers, because they needed some other substance to make the thing better. What do you call it?
The bin was about 4 foot tall, it sort of looked like tires stacked up,
Yeah.
right? And it's doable, Aaron's idea is fine, this idea
Yeah.
is good.
So if you could bring that back with that little proviso, because I like the idea that we throw it in our process.
Yeah, if
I
we
mean, that's just awesome.
buy some reasonably sturdy but not too heavy, several buckets that whoever's going one direction or the other could bring them back and forth. And can we put bones, like if we had chicken bones?
Small stuff like that, but not big.
If we all go vegetarian, then it doesn't matter. Okay, well, that's cool. Thanks for that, Aaron.
Yeah, good. All right, check. Eliminate the purchase and use of single-serving plastic water bottles at all board functions and district-wide. Mandate the use of tap water and pitchers for board use. East Bay Mud produces the best drinking water anywhere. It's anywhere. So, and they don't produce it, they get it from far away, and it comes with whatever pollutants are in the Sierras, and they remove those. So I think selling tap water versus the same exact substance coming in plastic containers is a good idea, and to have that the face of the board, I think, is a great idea. Director Stanley, you have?
Yeah.
Okay, we like that idea. Eliminate the purchase and use of plastic straws at board functions and district-wide. I went to the mayor's conference, I forget what town, they all gave us 2 metal straws, one bent and one straight, and a little thing to clean out the inside. And it came in a nice little case.
I got that at a giveaway at some conference recently.
Anyway, the board could make that swag for, yeah, I don't know what it cost. I bet it was inexpensive. It was aluminum or cheap metal, but the board could make that a bit of swag at our
Joe thing.
Yeah, we could make it a Joe thing at our, I don't know what it costs, so I'm just throwing it out there. That's the way to, and I'm all for eliminating plastic straws after I saw one being pulled out of a turtle's nose. Oh, sorry.
What?
I'll tell you later. We don't want to.
There's a bad image associated with that.
Yeah,
With straws?
with straws. Terrible and terrible.
With the turtle?
Yeah, at the rapidly changing the subject, at the Washington D.C. meet, somebody held up a credit card, and the discussion was microplastics in the ocean, and said, we eat one of these weekly. A credit card. We eat a credit card's worth of microplastic weekly on average. That is a mind blower, folks. That's a mind blower. So I like the idea of eliminating plastic anything if we can, and I know we can. I saw some perfectly usable cardboard, very coated cardboard spoons and forks and knives, and they seem fine, and they're totally digestible, so good. I would think it would be a good idea. I have no idea the cost, but I suspect it's nominal for the benefit. And yeah, and so plastic is an issue that I'm sure we have. Our effluent probably contains a fair amount of it. I've seen it eliminated in our screens, and but microplastic, I'm not sure how big a problem that is for us, because it would come from us breaking up old plastic as it comes through our processes and being part of our effluent and it's small. I don't know about what filtration. I wouldn't know, like, for example, how much of our biosolids contain microplastics? I don't know that we have ever tested for it or anything like that, but it'd be something to be interesting, because it's becoming everywhere. And I'm going to put a print of a report of all the issues that were brought up at the federal level that will affect potentially affect all sewage agencies, sanitary agencies. All right, so we got the straws, we got the plastic utensils.
Oh,
Oh, you have a thought?
plastic utensils, can we just buy more silverware?
that we have. It just-
And can we also, I've noticed that my fellow colleagues think we have a maid that clean up after us and leave all kinds of clutter up here. And I have found out that, no, the janitorial staff does not clean up our clutter, staff does.
That should be in our report.
So perhaps we can include in the janitorial's contract that if they're still here, any silverware, utensils, stuff like this from up here gets taken back and thrown in a dishwasher. And
They're not here on the nights when the board, so it's just staff that has to do it, and they would be here that way. So it's just
okay,
staff.
well, then that wasn't a bright.
I have a suggestion. A bus tray. Include
Well, yeah, that
include a
was
bus
next
tray,
coming out.
you know, as part of our, it's just a tray,
Like
a plastic tray that you carry when they bus your table. They call it busing. Having been a bus boy, started my career in work as a bus boy, first job. Besides a door-to-door salesman as a paper boy, I was a bus boy.
And along with this plastic stuff, I just have a question that's a little not on topic for Aaron. Do we have is the technology there for us to eliminate plastics from our end product?
We've got the effluents,
Yeah,
biosolids, those are the two end products that we have.
yeah.
A certain amount of plastic makes its way into the digesters, so it makes its way into well, I guess the answer is that we would probably have to enhance our screening, you know, at the front of the plant of what's coming in. The question of microplastics, there is nothing that I'm aware that trees at this point would use at the front of the plant, you know, that type of material. I'm sure if there was, it'd be all tricky to develop, but again, I think, you know, what John was talking about before was cost and that.
So there's a move in amongst people, and they're taking this to Congress, to do point source. Yeah. And to say to plastic producers, the end, what's thrown out is your responsibility. You own it from beginning to end. And so hopefully sanity will reign, but there's no guarantee at this date and time that will. But there is a movement, and there are people writing laws, you know, proposing laws, lobbying Congress to take that approach, particularly in things like the chlorofluorocarbons, which are basically impossible to remove at the back end, so shouldn't produce them at the front end. And so, you know, we need to, as a society, in order to solve these problems, it can't be on us. We receive it, but, you know, how can we do anything with it by the time we get it? It's too late. So anyway, that's the good news from the people's people power, but I don't know when Congress will ever regain sanity and work for us again. Okay, so establish an environmental steering committee, including a board member, to generate and discuss new environmental programs and initiatives for possible implementation at the district. Director Stanley, got anything to say about that?
Can I think you kind of have that with this group already, so
That was my question.
Yeah, I think it's already there. I don't think that that's another separate, but
Okay.
I think you can expand sort of, I mean, you already have it within the scope of this committee, so I think you can create, talk more about these matters specifically in this group, but I think that would cover.
All right, so maybe we can change that to bring such matters to the Global Warming Committee.
Through the chair, when I was thinking about this particular aspect, I thought that you're thinking, well, progressive is often insular because you have a particular context, and the idea that maybe involve specifically members of the work organization that might have ideas that you haven't thought of, or that might be able to take your ideas and filter them through the organization more effectively. I don't have a warm spot in my heart for this committee, right? But I'm not sure how much of what goes on here is actually known in the organization. So it was a way of kind of expanding the reach, if you will, of the work that you're trying to get done. So that was the thought behind the suggestion. I don't know if it strikes a chord, but that's where I was.
It strikes a chord with me, and the only, and so I'm, to your point, maybe I should let Director Stanley jump in at this point, and then I'll have my say.
Well, I don't think, I know I personally, and it sounds like you personally, wouldn't have a problem of showing up and being part of a roundtable or group discussion.
Or you could invite interested parties perhaps to be a part of the agenda and come for the last 15 minutes of the meeting to have that discussion if there were items to discuss, or you could create sort of an email box that people could send suggestions to for your consideration. Or there's a lot of ways to sort of expand your individual brain power by pulling feedback from others. Just again, this is a great platform, but I just don't think it goes much beyond the executive level.
No, I was agreeing with you by saying either myself or our Chairman Wiener is one or the other of us could show up. I do think that, speaking for myself, is any time that we can interact with staff, we're always happy to do so. Because just like we don't hear from staff, staff doesn't hear from us, so it's other than what you all tell them.
I think that's part of culture change.
Well, I think that it's less about the staff interaction and more about if you're going to, as John was saying, sort of get this, just a minute ago, the culture change, which is getting the entire organization focused around thinking this way, then it makes sense to have a place where that exchange of ideas is coming from both leadership as well as people in organization. I think the way that's written here, that wasn't clear to me, but I think what John was suggesting is actually a good idea. And actually, John has a list. I had asked him to put together a list of ideas for this committee, how to make this committee more focused and be able to bring forward some of the ideas. And I now that I'm thinking about it, I believe he just that idea is in that list. He put together quite a few things, but it would get the entire organization more focused around it, and then you've got some change agents within that group that can be bringing those ideas forward. Otherwise, it comes down as a mandate that says no more plastic straws, no more water bottles.
You must be vegetarian.
Exactly. You must be vegetarian. And then, as opposed to bringing people in who are actually interested in those matters within the district and who want to help bring these things forward. So I think that's actually really good. Now that I understand what you mean.
Yeah, and I'm totally for that. Collaboration is probably the fastest, best, and easiest way to get a good solution to any problem. The more perspectives, the better. Convincing people that they have something to say and helping them express it is, I think, the goal of the culture change that we're trying to put forth, because, our whole upbringing is all around authority and level within a organization, or it's all top down, authority driven, even schooling, it's all about authority. So the culture change is a big deal, and to get to have really people thinking about this is wonderful, because once they realize it's not beyond their capacity to think, they might stumble on an idea that is completely beautiful. Who knows? So I like your idea, and I think that's and I like Lisa thought of it as a thing that the committee should do, but I like that it's more collaborative and multi, a collaboration. So if you would present it more that way. The next one is board members can promise to bicycle, walk, carpool, and use transit, or drive an electric vehicle to board meetings and functions where possible. I'm going to turn it over to Director Stanley for her comments, and then.
Well, I don't like the wording. I don't like can promise to do anything. I know that I physically cannot do any of these, and I have issues with this electric car thing. I get a lot of these news feed things, and you get the pictures of the children getting whooped by some overseer at some place in Africa for not carrying their bags of rocks that they got the minerals that they need to make batteries, and that haunts me. And then I'm waiting for 5 or 10 years down the road to where everyone who's bought an electric cars, what are we doing with recycling all these batteries? So I'm very much on the fence about electric cars in general, because I'm not sold that I'm not sold on how the batteries are being produced, and I'm not sold on what we're going to do to recycle them. But regardless, that's, now you're talking about directors and what decisions they're going to make about their personal vehicles, and that's kind of outside of, I just don't like this whole thing at all. People can walk or bicycle or do whatever the heck they're going to do. I don't think any of us really live very close to here. That's more of an individual thing, and I don't think we need to have it on a list unless it's like might consider.
I agree with Director Stanley about some things, but we can only do what we can do individually. There's certain economic decisions that have to be made. I think those people that can afford to drive electric cars are saints, because what they're doing to the price of oil is driving it down because they're not using it. And so the more, there's so many implications in a complicated and humongous global world. It's very difficult to solve them all. Being a lefty, I know that there has to be a fundamental change, but no one's going there right now. So, in fact, it's so clear that there has to be a fundamental change when you talk about global climate change that you get people lying about it, saying it doesn't happen. And particularly those people whose economic interests are at stake. So, yeah, I like the idea that the board will try to do this, to think about how they get to and from everything. And Unfortunately, for example, we just all collectively voted down Measure J, which was all about funding an additional half-cent. We have a half-cent sales tax that's ending, and this was going to continue that half-cent sales tax, but my fellow citizens decided in Contra Costa County they weren't going to continue paying that half-cent sales tax. So we'll await public transportation that works for everybody, and think about better ways to get here. I could bicycle, but I wouldn't dare. I've broken a hip. I'm not going to have another one broken because some guy decided to go out of his lane. So I guess we can just. I would leave that there. Board member, board members consider transportation to the board. Other than that, I just see it as being a bigger issue than the board individually can make a difference on, or lead the way even. We're old. Let's get real. So maybe if we were all 20, we could hike up here. All right. The board could adopt a policy to mitigate the greenhouse gas impacts of any plane travel by board members on district businesses. And I'd like to start this one, if I might. Director Stanley has been wanting to plant trees, and it turns out that what John was thinking was that we could offset our plane travel, the carbon usage of jet plane travel, by planting a tree, which will suck up. So maybe if you could put that idea as an example, we could offset. Yeah, what you mean is we are offsetting our carbon footprint by doing something positive to reduce carbon in general. I love the idea of every time I go on a conference, 10 trees are planted. I just love that idea. Huh? Yeah. Yeah. Roots are an issue. You can put that in there too.
I mean, that should be part of our PR campaign with the lateral program, is just like PG&E has that program, just call us up, it's free, we'll come out and tell you where our pipes are. Same thing with this, we'll tell you where your lateral is.
Don't plant your tree there. Good point. So where we plant the trees will be a very important decision. I like the idea of forest remediation, land remediation. We have taken a whole lot of land in Contra Costa County out of grazing, a whole lot of it. And rather than plant houses there, it'd be nice to plant oaks and native plants. And I was talking to this is just an interesting aside, I was talking to a ranger out at Kennedy Grove, and they said, I said, are you guys planning on replacing all these beautifully tall and old eucalyptus trees with redwoods? Because there are redwoods planted around the perimeter as well as among the eucalyptus. And she said the redwoods aren't thriving. They're not growing very fast. In fact, they're kind of stunted because there's not enough fog that comes up that canyon. And so what the Forest Service is thinking is that you want to plant trees from 50 miles south. Whatever's thriving 50 miles south is what you want to plant in your, to remediate grazing land. And so there's thinking going on. People are thinking about remediation and how to do it, and how to do it in a resilient fashion to deal with global warming. So anyway, so I like the idea of offsets and tying it to remediation. So you might throw that in there as like ideas. I don't have any idea what the cost of a tree is. I think they might be inexpensive because there's a lot of young people wanting to do this.
There probably are programs that we can access the very board, for example. You can always
Arbor Day.
plant someplace else, help to purchase open space. There's a lot of ways to do it. It's another way of putting a cash value on externalities of our operational impacts.
Well, cash is not the only thing. We got to, try to do the cheapest carbon offset possible. I mean, I don't know a better way to put it.
Well, we could subsidize Arbor Day in our community. Also, another thing is just as part of our mindset, we're probably going to do this levy thing, and individuals, because there's some individually owned properties, when they finally get notified that they're going to lose part of their property because sea level, and, oh, by the way, we want you to chunk up a bunch of money to participate in this levy thing, perhaps they're going to be starting to think about selling. And I'd like us to be open to buying. And we can make just like the wastewater district in Arcata.
A freshwater marsh?
Well, no, part of their property, they're growing trees as a crop.
Oh, I had no idea.
And so, I personally like the idea of buying up whatever land over there by the plant that comes up for sale, or making it known that we'd be willing to do so. And I also know that at the end of Garden Track Road, where there's a automobile wreckers thing, that the Board of Supervisors would like them to go away, and they're imposing fines or fees. And that would be 5 acres, whatever it is out over there, 10 acres. And so I'm all for us buying as much land as possible in that area. One, because then we don't have neighbors who are complaining about any of our odors. We're helping reduce carbon, and possibly we're creating a cash product, a crop that brings us money, and it also gives us an opportunity to at some point, as Joe N over at the plant is developing his programs of, more science, more availability to say, this is what we're doing. We're watering these trees with wastewater. We're doing, and just the thinking. Just the thinking of how we, what if things, I think it's good to have, it's one thing for me as a director to just sort of pay attention. It's inappropriate for me to say, hey, so we're thinking about, and because John knows as well as anybody that I don't have the authority to say anything, but I have been in conversation with John over the last 3 years, and I know that this is something that he'd like to see happen, at least where the auto wreckers are, and I have brought up the subject of small landowners in that same area, the impact that it's going to have on them if Chevron and Richmond Sanitary do join the group and we do make it a large project, that those landowners are going to be financially impacted. We're going to be in a wonderful vulture situation where we can benefit and perhaps from it. So I just want to throw that out there as a thing, and maybe somebody might call and talk to Robert Rogers over there at John Joya's office and say, so we're just throwing it out there in case you do get rid of those people at the auto wrecker things or anything else that maybe we could be part of the discussion. And again, this is coming to the board, so I'm just letting you know what I'm thinking about that. What do you think?
I think we've done very well by owning the farm that they bought many, many years ago. It served us well. It gave us a spot to put a treatment plant. And we still own a fair amount of land that we're not always using. We just got some income from a company that's staging on the land. So just the fact that we owned it generated some income because people need to put stuff in places. And it's not a permanent change to the land. I like the idea of us remediating, recreating or extending or, making biodiversity part of our land stewardship. It would be nice if we could do that. I don't know. Or expand our capacity to produce biosolids that we could spread on forests. There's a lot of potential for us to remediate, given that that's basically how nature works. The stuff that we're getting is totally the thing that nature recycles and uses to feed higher organisms that benefit us, oxygen, CO2 reduction, yada, yada. So I think we're kind of positioned to be kind of leaders in that, just in terms of public relations. I know there's a cost of public relations, but I think that its benefits far outweigh its costs. And if we're positioning ourselves as thought leaders, that's, it's cheap. Hot air is cheap. So I like the idea that we're thinking about all these things. And it's great to have a list like this. Thank you, John. And thank you, Caesar, for thinking that, oh, yeah, maybe the board ought to do stuff. And yeah, it's great. It's great. I really think this meeting was wonderful. Thanks to you, John, and this list, and Caesar for proposing it. So we have another item.
We're done with this one.
Yep. That's the list.
5B now.
Back to the agenda.
I'm sorry. Oh, it's right here. Review and discuss options for a district-sponsored Earth Day event for 2021.
Do we have a report?
There's no report. This was just referred to you guys. You wanted to talk about it from the last board meeting. What I may suggest, since you've got some time, is that we might want to ask Joe to maybe come next month and talk to you about some ideas, because he's obviously familiar with the Day events that are going on around the Bay Area, and he may be able to, might be good to have him to collaborate with on thinking through what you might want to consider for next year.
I'd love to participate in one or more, and
May I?
Yeah.
So this coincidentally, or maybe it wasn't a coincidence, we touched on this a little bit this morning, a little late, because we had our plant leadership meeting on Tuesday. And this subject came up of Earth Day, and we are doing two events, as you know, this coming Earth Day, which we are piggybacking on other events. What we talked about this morning, and as related to Joe and the rest of the staff, is that in discussions with past board meetings,
bring something back to this committee next month and talk about some of the ideas? Is that a possibility? Okay.
I'd also like to fold in that a lot of what we need to implement any of our plans is money, and a source of funding is the state, the county, and the state and the county. And so it would be great. I've talked to Joya, I've talked to staff of Congressman DeSaulnier. There's another congressman that's, I think some of our district has a different congressperson. Might all be DeSaulnier, but I think there might be portion of Pinole that is another congressman whose name is escaping me. But I'd love to have their staff come to these things, because when they all talk about infrastructure, and unfortunately what they really mean is roads and bridges. And if there ever was a very important infrastructure, it is ours. And so they constantly talk about spending money on infrastructure. We need to spend money on infrastructure. And I definitely want our infrastructure to become important to them, to understand that, it's not only the stuff above the ground that is important in terms of infrastructure, but it's the stuff below the ground that might even be more important than the above ground infrastructure. So I've tried to get on the congressman's calendar. That's almost impossible. So I'd like to see us get Congress people's staff and they have portfolios. So they're all assigned different subject matter. And so our state is Buffy Wicks. We got our Senator Steve Glazer, I think, is our state senator. I could be wrong. No, Skinner. Nancy Skinner is our state senator. There's staff that focuses on infrastructure should be an integral part of our whatever we plan. So a big part of it will be scheduling public officials or mostly their staff. I think we can get their staff to come more than them. But it'd be great if John Joyce showed up to our event, and it'd be great if Skinner showed up, or any of those people. That'd be a great thing to have in our newspaper, that our state senator Nancy Skinner showed up for a tour to our plant on Earth Day. Those are the kind of things we can get to happen, and it'd be great, because there's money. There's money that needs to be spent. I think, I could be wrong, and I think it would be good for me to ask Mick, but I believe that most of our infrastructure was built with federal clean water funding in the 70s. That our plant was basically funded not by our ratepayers, but by the federal government. So,
I think that was the case with
yeah.
After World War II?
Yeah. So I think it was the Clean Water Act, which has been the target of many people recently in terms of reduction in government spending. They don't like the Clean Water Act. It gets in the way of pollution. So we got to do something. They got to do something about it. Anyway, that's my pitch for part of establishing these events, that they also be used to help our industry get our elected representatives focused on how important we are. And, they'll know about it if we go out of business. There's going to be hell to pay for them if we go out of business, and they need to know that.
I have thoughts.
Yes?
I would like the entire month of April to be kind of open to us rather than just Earth Day, so that we're not all crazy about a particular weekend or day. That way, if we still wanted to participate in other events that other groups are having, we could. But I like the idea of what you were saying, Aaron, about the hazardous waste facility and us, and just letting people know what it is that we do. I also know from my volunteerism in the past that if you do something and that's why I'm saying the month of April, every April, you know that that's when this occurs. So groups that are having children, like, well, let's go do that thing. That was pretty cool. Or if I actually was talking about garbage with Mick, and apparently in our charter, we can empty garbage. So we could empty our dumpsters we have out there and make them available for people to come dump off stuff for 2 or 3 days during Earth Day week, for example, or whatever. But if we establish something that we do every year, the wastewater district does this thing every year, sometime in the month of April, then people like the politicians, oh, well, we can pop over there and do the wastewater thing on April 10th versus April 20th because we have an open schedule. We're not competing with everybody else, which is a good thing. And also, not only helping our environment, but in some way promoting us. You know, there's careers here to be had, and there's science stuff, more science stuff. You know, anything that we can do to promote the science and the careers that different people do here. We got a lot more women working here than we did when I first started here. We got people anywhere from blue collar to scientists working here. So it'd just be good to promote those type of things. Whether or not we give tours, I suppose that really depends on how crazy we want to get. Or we can decide that we're going to, in the month of April, that we're going to host the fourth graders from everyone who lives in our district to come on by and take tours. That's the kind of things I was thinking about, this regular stuff that we create to promote our district, so that, I think it was you, Harry, who brought it up, maybe not. If we're talking to the kids, it's getting to the parents type of mentality, so.
Yeah, that's the, what's her name from Central San, their PR person. She's produced kid videos, and they've created a kid character, a cartoon character that's a super sewer guy, and he does, there's Biff Baff Boff and a lot of stuff around wastes, wipes, keeping wipes out of the. My I think she was five-year-old great niece plugged up my sewers with my house with wipes because she was into them. She would flush them and use them and flush them and use them. I had this ball in there and it backed up all my toilets into my shower. Anyway, so it's good to get them young. That was one of her plans, and it's a good idea. And
So-
we have, they came up with a game, a really cool game. Yeah.
Sorry, it's 12 o'clock and we have.
Oh, we gotta
more
go.
items and, yeah, thank you.
Okay, so do we have more items?
Yeah, so if Joe can come back and tell
Yep,
us something.
we've got, you have 6A and 7A and B.
Staff, general manager, you
No
guys?
comments.
No comments, no comments, no comments. Okay, let's rush through this. Do you have a report on issues pertaining to the work of the committee, Director Stanley? Me neither. Do you have any other future agenda items that we,
Just,
besides the ones we've already discussed?
Nope.
All right, we're adjourned.
There we go.
Thank you. It was, I really obviously really enjoy these sessions, and they're really inspiring to me, and it's great. Thank you. Good committee, Sherry. Good committee. Good committee. It's very cool. Oh, I went to the Sierra Club executive committee meeting, and
I've been wanting to do stuff like that, but I find the Sierra Club really confusing.